You need a dose of this.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another live episode of You Need a Dose of This. It is early in the morning, 11 a.m. here in the East Coast, and I am going to be live with a good buddy of mine. Great dude. Awesome guy. I said awesome, 4 or 5 times there. Mr. Haydes. I'm going to bring him in, but before I bring him in, I also wanted to give a shout out to the sponsor of the show, and that is a gentleman by the name of Eddie Lima, who has an incredible book out right now on Kickstarter. The show notes will have all his information, and that is End of Zed. So check this out, and we'll be right back.
My name is Eddie Lima, and I'm the creator of End of Zed, a project I've been working on for years. The story follows a robot who crash lands in the Bronx in 1982, severely damaged and with no memory, as he navigates one of the city's most turbulent times, shaped by the rise of the crack epidemic. He also discovers the powerful, positive force of hip-hop.
Where am I? Party people, are we ready? 3, 2, 1.
End of Zed isn't just another comic. It fuses the rebellious energy of New York City with a gripping dystopian narrative. This story delivers visually striking action and powerful themes. If you're into bold, unapologetic storytelling, then the End of Zed is for you. By backing this project, you're not only helping bring Zed's story to life, but you'll gain access to exclusive rewards. I can't wait for all of you to experience Zed's world. Back my project today and become part of this amazing journey.
Yes, indeed. Back this project today. Lou Pons is in the house. What's up, Lou? And she says, yes, back End of Zed. Okay, so without further ado, please welcome Mr. Haydes, president, CEO, owner. Great guy from ASAP Imagination. Here he is. Let's get him in here. What's up, Haydes?
How's it going, dude? I'm all right, mate. How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm actually glad that we're doing this nice and early. We're talking behind the scenes there. It is currently, 3 o'clock in the UK?
Around about that. Yeah. Well, our clocks just went back. So you'll catch up with us again. Yours will change soon, but...
Yes, we will fall back. We fall back and spring forward. That's how I remember that in the fall, the clocks go back. In the spring, they move forward. We fall back and we spring forward. But...
We don't have that over here. I just have to Google and go, okay, backwards. Okay,
fine. Yes. Oh, Miss Cunningham. How are you, Miss Cunningham? Thank you very much for joining us today. So today we're gonna deep dive. I've been doing these shows where I talk to creators about their books. And for those who don't know, essentially what I want to do is almost what these shows do for shows like Agatha or the Penguin, for example, who are now being streamed now on their platforms or whatever, where people will have shows dedicated to the show and they talk about what it's about, what they think is going to happen, like they deep dive into these shows. So I want to do that for us, for the smaller guys, right? Where we have great stories that nobody has any idea what they are. And so I want to talk about them. And speaking of End of Zed, what's up, Betty? How you doing? Happy Monday.
Hey.
So we're going to do that today. We're going to do that with a book called Dead of Night. Now, Dead of Night is a book that you obviously are the master behind it. You created it, but you brought me along to kind of help with the storytelling part of it. And I thank you very much for that, because that was a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. It's going to continue to be fun. So thank you, my friend. But before we get into even that, Hades, I want to talk a little bit about our world. And when I say our world, I'm not talking about our world, literally. I'm talking about the world you created within ASAP Imagination. And that is the event and things that kind of sprung this world of yours. So tell us a little bit about what our world is. And I'm using air quotes, but our world.
So yeah, it was originally, so when I started the company, we needed like a jumping off point. And I'd got an idea of various titles in my head and various stories that I wanted to tell. Dead of Night obviously being one of them. But the jumping off point was I decided to put the readers smack bang right in the middle of it all kicking off. I didn't want to do a nice little build up. I wanted to literally just like open the door and go ta-da, and it was straight in. So it starts with an event in the UK, and people are experiencing things that they can hear things and things out the corner of their eye, and you know there's nightmares are literally kind of coming true for people. And then all of a sudden, there's, over the space of like 48 hours, that London is just devastated by these kind of like beasts and monsters and all this stuff. And they hit us en masse. And in the world that I'd built, I'd got these heroes pre-planned that were there before this event. So they were more the cape and cowl wearing kind of heroes. But in my opening act, I literally decimated them. So I either killed them, sent them into obscurity. In the case of Dead of Night, which we'll get to, I think he got the worst treatment, and I decided to just kind of obliterate them in the opening act. And then from that point, and Laurie Cunningham, who's in the chat, obviously co-wrote that book with me. And then what we did is we started to bring out titles that centered around it, and around this pendant that is the cause of all the agony in my world, or our world.
Yeah, no, it's actually awesome. I do want to share some of the behind the scenes stuff from that world. And, within this, what I'm about to share, we have some of the characters that you're talking about. And some of them, obviously, they spun off into their own stories. And what I love about our world is that it's almost like, and for just to give people context, it's almost like what Marvel does, right? Or DC does. They have their universe, and within their universe, they have different characters. And that's what this is. It's a universe with different characters, which can or cannot, or will not cross over into each other's worlds. And that right there, man, is an undertaking. And this is one of the characters here, Angel of Death concept art. And this is Sister Grimm, I believe, right?
That's right. Yeah, that was the first drawing of Sister Grimm we ever had. Because again, that was Laurie Cunningham's character, and she gave descriptions of the character based on various films and things that she thought. And we actually had that made up. In fact, she didn't know it was made up until it was a thing. She didn't know it was actually going to be a thing. So that was the initial concept design for Sister Grimm. Yeah,
that's nice. That's nice. This is Ward.
That's it. That's Robert Ward. Pre-event. So that is him before the nightmares hit us. So as you can see, no helmet, no mask. Very kind of like smile for the cameras, almost posing as in like he's on a red carpet.
Yes. Giving you the people's eyebrow. He's got
exactly. The kingdom's eyebrow.
Right. And so this is Dead of Night. This is the Dead of Night character. This is Robert Ward for those watching.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So, but pre-event, shall we say? As you can see there, he's got a mixture of medieval meets kind of army style kind of armor. So very tactical guy, very clever guy. A little bit cocky, bit cool, all the rest of it. And then obviously the event does what it does to him. So but that was the first design of him as well.
Oh, that was the first design. Nice.
That was the first ever drawing.
Now we have this character here.
Yeah, so this guy hasn't made an appearance as yet, because again, he was one of the heroes before the event, and that's Shadow Fox. With his fox, which is Zenko, which is stood next to him, and during the event, he's essentially, for once, intents and purposes, killed off. So we will see him in flashback and so on and so forth. But again, I will still get to tell his story further down the road. He has got stories coming, but they're a bit of a way off yet.
Gotcha. And then you have that interesting character there.
Yeah, so that's Duchess. So she, and again, this was the first design of her. She is the mentor of Robert Ward. So the thing about the family, the Ward family, is it's very much like, or it was very much like not the Punisher, the Phantom,
The Phantom.
where it was passed from father to son, the kind of mantle.
Right.
And since medieval times, there's been a Ward knight, fighting for the kingdom, and he was the latest Ward. Unfortunately, his father was no longer with him, so Duchess, who was trained by his father, becomes his trainer and mentor and best friend, and essentially she's she teaches him. She's his Alfred, if you like, if you if you want to compare. But again, she was one of the characters that we to lead up to his story, we had to kind of unfortunately kind of kill her off as well within the event.
Right.
So
That event messed a lot of things up, man. A lot
it
of things.
certainly did. Yeah, it's nasty.
Yeah. Now this is
Um,
Foe. This is
that's
Foe. This
Foe.
is
That's
yes.
Foe. Yeah. So again the first ever design of Foe. Again, like back when he was first designed, his mask was so simplistic. It was just black and white and done. We now have a more tactical looking mask, but yeah, that was the initial one of Foe, and he he's a character in the story, the title, sorry, Messiah, and he's kind of become a bit of a fan favorite. People love Foe.
Yeah.
But he's kind of got that kind of I love the suit and the mask kind of look. It kind
Yeah.
of reminds
It's
me of
cool.
kind of old manga and stuff like that,
Yes.
Crying
Yeah.
Freeman and things.
For
So
sure,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I think this is when we first met a few years ago. This was one of the
Mm,
first characters that I remember you had, because I remember you at the time and how things have changed. And we'll talk about a little bit about how far we've come along with the stories
mm.
and with the world and everything like that. But back then, you were doing something called Friend of Foe, and,
Friend
and
of
you were
Foe,
and
yeah.
you were basically emailing a PDF of this mask where you could just print it out, cut it
Yep.
out, and then people would be posing with that paper masks, right?
Yeah.
Now you actually have that mask available, plastic. It's like an actual
It's a
mask,
3D printed mask now.
3D
Yeah.
printed
Yeah.
mask now. That's
Yeah.
how far we've come along on the website. So
It's
if you guys
crazy.
are interested in cosplaying, I mean, Halloween is 3 days away, maybe a little too late for this Halloween, but maybe that's Halloween.
Yeah.
Do something like
Foes
that. Yeah, no,
everywhere.
this is a really cool looking mask, man. Really cool looking stuff.
Thanks, man.
Now, some of these designs, these are very cool. This is for another story within the world called OPSEC.
Yes, that's right. So it was written by D.W. Howard, or Nem, as many of us know him. And OPSEC is like our version of like the BPRD. So what I like about the different titles, so we've got ongoing titles. We've got obviously Dead of Night, we've got Messiah, we've got OPSEC, we've got Sister Grimm, and we've got Person. What I love is just the different energies they all come with. Sister Grimm is very dark and horror based. I would say that Dead of Night has got that kind of violent aspect to it. You've got Messiah that's kind of got the most amount of kind of like kind of comedy in there, and then you've got like OPSEC, which is again it's like a version of the BPRD. So it's like it's like our world's investigation kind of services.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I move on to the next one, I just wanted to show so Captain Poncho Mitch, a less convoluted universe in either Marvel or DC, LOL. And then he
Thanks,
also
man.
says these designs are so cool. Yeah, no, thanks, man. That's awesome. So then we have, obviously there's just more designs. I really like the style, the art style here. That's I dig, the boxy look, almost like the Batman animated series kind of look for these characters.
Yeah, it kind of got we also wanted that, because obviously you got Mike Mignola who created Hellboy.
Yes.
We wanted that kind of square jawed look for it. So yeah, no, they're fantastic. I love them.
That's cool. I like the detail. Like you have the tattoo on his arm and stuff like that. So he was, he's a badass looking dude. Yeah, this character's really cool too.
So so this is Bridget. So Bridget, so I come from an Irish family, and Bridget is like a deity in Irish folklore. and she's known as the Triple Goddess. And if you look at her as she's seen in folklore, it's like three faces, and it's known as the sister of the forge, this hang on, the sister of inspiration, and the sister of hearth. So it's essentially the forge is fire, inspiration is what it is, and hearth is to heal. So what I did was I tweaked that folklore, and as she stands there, she's actually made up of three women. And so the earth has chosen three women who were known as the Sisters of Bridget. So they're three women from, they're not related to actual sisters. But the earth chooses three women and gives each one of them a power. One of them has the ability to heal. One of them has the ability to sway your mind, but in a positive way. It's never to be used. That's why it's inspiration. Right. And the third one is essentially kind of like a little badass, and she's fire resistant and all that kind of stuff, and controls flame. So the three of them separately have these abilities, but then they can once the three of them connect, they kind of hold hands and stand in a circle. It's almost like you remember Captain Planet.
Yeah.
The Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, Heart. It's similar to that, but the three women actually become her.
That's
so
cool, man.
Without the three of them together, she can't become. So it takes these three amazing women, and that's why she's known as the Triple Goddess.
The Triple Goddess. That's cool. I like that you're incorporating kind of like folklore and that, and that stuff into the story as well.
Yeah, man.
This is a cool little sketch of Sister Grimm sitting on the train or the tube.
Yeah, right? It's like the London Underground kind of thing we went for. Yeah. Then you can obviously, if you see her reflection in the mirror there, in the window. And then a lot of people wonder why there's a person standing outside the train, and it's because that's actually Bennett, who's a ghost, who's just kind of floating there.
Yeah. I'm actually, and I wanted to give her a shout out too, because I'm actually in the process of like just finishing up some of the lettering for this book. So big shout out to Laura Cunningham and her book, Sister Grimm. This is great. Then you have this cool shot of Ward in the helmet now, just kind of hanging out there.
Yeah. Well, that was it. I wanted to have him, go. One of the stories I always found to be, fantastic was the kind of V for Vendetta world. And I loved the fact that no matter what rage, V was feeling, you couldn't see it behind that mask. So it was the same for Ward. The minute he put that on, the knight that he was, hence the title, but the knight that he was done, and now he's kind of gone a bit more medieval.
Right. Yeah. Then you have this cool insignia. Now, is this what was on his arm, on the character's arm for OPSEC? Is this the
Yeah, so it's like their badge essentially. And we changed. This was the initial design, but we changed it slightly because on UK money, and I'm sure if Lupons is still in the chat, she'll vouch for this. But a lot of the times we have a lion and a unicorn. On a lot of our money. And currency and so on and so forth. But so this was the initial design, but then what we decided to do was alter it that in this world in which we exist, they're always facing one another, the lion and the unicorn. What we decided to do to alter this was have them facing outwards.
Facing out.
Yeah, so they've got their back to each other. But this was the initial design. So,
interesting. Now I have obviously I've heard of the lions, right? Even in your like the three lions and stuff like that. But I've never. So the unicorn. Do you know what the significance of the unicorn is in your mind?
I'm not sure. I think it might be Scotland, but I'm not. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I just know of the lion and the unicorn. So.
Yeah, Lou says, I'll just put what she said. Yes, the magical money of Old Blighty.
Correct. Yes, indeed.
Nice. Yeah, this is cool. And then this is cool. So this was the original image that you drew way back in the day of Daniel, right? Messiah.
I drew that in 99. as a just a scribble throwaway character, and I didn't use him at the time. And then when I started to have ideas all these kind of years later, I decided to revisit some doodles and drawings and so on and so forth. And he was one of them. And obviously, just the way he looks, there's nothing heroic looking about him. He looks a mess. He kind of reminds me of like Dark Man, you know, the Liam Neeson.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You know, so I was like, you know, he kind of looked a mess. And then I met Kyle, who was the artist for issue 1 of Messiah, and that was his drawing next to it that he did and sent it back to me. So that's the official first ever drawing of Daniel in '99, so 20 odd years ago, as just a throwaway. And then this was Kyle's one was about 6 years ago.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, time is flying, right?
Yeah, man.
This character is cool too here.
So that was Tailwind. That was actually a character that once I'd started talking to Kyle about you know, coming up with some character names and stuff, he'd come up with Tailwind. We wanted to give him that kind of almost old Rocketeer kind of look, a very classic hero. And you will see the new design, because this again was the concept, and I think it's in it's in the first Points of Villainy graphic novel that we have. Tailwind is in one of the stories in that. So
okay,
you get to see him in action in one story.
Oh, cool. And then we're going to close this out with this, which has a huge significance within the story.
This is the cause of everything, essentially. So this is known as the Somnium Diamond or the Dream Diamond. And the quickest pitch I can give you about the Dream Diamond is the first person to ever go to sleep and dream in history created a dream world Big Bang. And as time's gone on, it's the same world that you and I and everyone else, when we go to sleep, that's the world that we visit. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger the more people to visit. So we all have dreams, but we also all have nightmares. And this pendant is actually made from the bone of the first. So it's actually made from the bones of that first person to go to sleep. And as you can see, like, you know, the top half has got that kind of clean bone look.
Yeah.
And then the bottom of it's all charred and gnarly. And the idea behind it, the premise is that if you're a descendant of the first, and there are many of us who will be, if you're wearing the pendant, you have the ability to open the gateway between the two worlds.
That's
so awesome. Yeah, so you can step in and out, but that also means certain things can get out.
The beauty, and this is why I like talking to like creative minds, right? And people who create their own stories, because you tell me this and it's hard to say what's real and what you made up. So like, because it's so well thought out, like the whole idea of that came from the first person, whoever dreamt or whoever went to sleep and had dreams. Is that how much of that is based on research that you've done, and how much of it is just, hey, I just made that up? Like it's got nothing to do with
it. Was pretty much the latter. I did just kind of make it up. Well, I just
insane.
You know, things like that have always fascinated me, because again, you know, you have people who will say follow your dreams, and you know, every time you go to sleep you're doing, and it just stuck with me, and I just thought that'd be quite interesting. Where did they come from? You know,
that's interesting. So, descendants of the first person to ever have fallen asleep and dreamt. Now, how much of that is, or how, I guess I want to say, how religious does it get? You know, like how much of Adam and Eve is in? Did you incorporate any of that kind of stuff? Or is this all, because I know you definitely have demons, obviously, and angels and things like that. But how much of it is based on, like, you know, not just theology, but specific to like maybe Christianity and things like that?
I would say that initially, when I first started to come up with it, it was going to be more like an angels and demons kind of thing. Whereas the tweak that I gave it in making that diamond was making it a dreams versus nightmare kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea behind points of villainy and points of virtue is that the things that attack us are our own nightmares, and the things that save us are our own dreams. And we don't realize as a nation, because obviously it only happens in the UK, we don't realize as a nation that we did it to ourselves and we saved ourselves because those nightmares and dreams belonged to us. What we just saw was things that were horrible and so on. So I think like maybe less in terms of religion, but more in terms of what's within your control and what you know. Because again, you can certain mindset, you can get up and go, I'm going to have a terrible day, and you will, because you've just told yourself you're going to have a terrible day. But if you do what I refer to as kick myself up the backside, if you're having a bad day, and again, I have them, everyone has them, but it's like you've still got to, you know. So again, it's that idea that we've done this to ourselves, but we've saved ourselves. But in our ignorance of it, this is the thing. So our ignorance of that situation, there is a religion that was born out of it. So, but again, you know, it was someone capitalized on it, and we were saved by these beings of light, because that was the point. The heroes fell, and it was these beings of light that saved us, and we dubbed them the luminous because of the way that they were glowing. And within a year of the event, and obviously it will lead on to the title that we're going to talk about, but within a year of the event, there is a cultish church known as the Church of the Luminous. So a religion came of it, but it wasn't intentional to have it there.
No, that's freaking awesome. Lou followed up her last thing. Don't forget the dragon. LOL.
Oh yeah, Wales. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There you go. But so you're right. So this does lead us into the dead of night, right?
Yeah.
Because this world that you created, you know, kind of just goes into what we're going to talk about today, and it is, and I want to share some of the pages from the first issue. So for those who are watching, and if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel, like the show that we have right now, and check out the show notes, because a lot of the stuff that there are a lot of links where you guys can pick up stuff, you know, the books or whatever on those links for what we're talking about. So let me I'm going to go ahead and share my share what we're talking about here, if I can find it on my you know, self-produced podcast here. Hold on a second while I locate that. But no, it's all right. But you know what, like what I enjoyed it. Listen, like I said, you pulled me in to kind of like write this story, and there's so much world building here, right? That went into it. So when you pick up a book, and again, when you're working within a universe, my biggest thing when working on it was, how do I not mess up the continuity in another book as I'm writing the story for this book? But it sounds like you guys have production meetings, right? Between you and Lori and them about the world itself. So tell us a little bit about those kind of like writing meetings, production, whatever you want to call them. Tell me a little bit about that before I pull this up here.
Yeah. So initially it was with the book, because we had a timeline within the story. So when me and Laurie were writing the book, we had to match like timelines up and when things were happening. And then what we decided to do was, when the titles were coming out, we were like, right, everything gets a 4-issue arc to establish the character within the world, and then we'll build upon that. But within that arc, we could hint, or we could nod towards the other things, because there's the whole timeline, which I know we're going to show. But there is a whole timeline. So sometimes we have to be, you know, okay, so we can't talk about this in Sister Grimm yet, because Sister Grimm is 3 months after, and Dead of Night is a year after. So there's that, and again, you'll be pulled into these calls now. You're part of it, to go, right, this isn't going to work here because this is 6 months. So we're literally, you know, it's working off a timeline. But again, we have subtle nods within the books of each other, which I love.
Yeah, no, it's awesome here. Lou says she's singing. Sweet dreams are made of
Yeah.
these. You're about
That's
to
going
be
to be stuck in my head all day now,
yeah,
Lou.
thanks a lot, Lou. Thanks. So this is Dead of Night here, and the timeline you're talking about, and which I love that you do, and I think you have this in every book you guys publish, right? Like the timeline. So this is what it was. Now, first, when was this published? The first Dead of Night. This was published what?
2021.
Okay, so in 2021. In 2021, and this is the full cover here, guys. This is a gorgeous looking cover. Look at the detail, and I love that. I love how you guys did this. So this is the main continuity collection. So it starts with Points of Villainy, right? And for those who are collectors and want to collect the books, and you want to read them in order, this is the order you would read them in, right? Is that what this is? The order?
Literally, this was where we were when we were at that point.
Yeah, at that point. So you have Points of Villainy, Points of Virtue. Whole would be the first book you would read. Then you'd go into Sister Grimm, Messiah Part 2, OBSEC, and then Dead of Night. And that was it. In 2021, that's all you would have to have read. And this is where the continuity was. And again, you can always find them at asevimagination.com, which hasn't changed. But yeah, it just boggles my mind how it's gone from there. And I'll show the second issue of Dead of Night in just a few minutes. But this is the first issue, and this is where you were. So let's go into the book. So now, Dead of Night, I really love the way you guys did the just the production of the book itself. Now, Kang Jing he's the artist in this issue, right? And Pavitz
he was the colorist.
Okay, all right. So this is you, P.A. Hayden, aka Hades, which I think you've changed since, right? Now you just
everyone, it just got to a point where everyone was calling me that, so I was just like, I decided to go the way of Cher and Prince and go, that's okay, that's one name, that's easier. So yeah, even on my business cards it says Hades now, so it's
that's awesome.
It's official.
That's awesome. All right, so this is and then obviously your copyright page, but I love this image here, man. Like you see the torment that he's going through, and the delight. It's just a beautiful image that you guys put together here. And this is one of the pages in the book. All right, so this is where we start. This is where we start. And what I like about this also, Hades, and I'll make it a little small so you guys can see, is we talked about this, I think, before we came on, the duality of things, right?
Yeah.
The way you write, the way you do this now and then. So this is what the museum, which is where we open up the book. This is the museum this is the Ward exhibit in the museum.
That's right. Yeah.
And this is what it looks like after the event. No, this is what it looked like. Yeah, after the event. This is what it looked like before the event, right? This is people were going there. He was revered. Everybody, went to look at the exhibit. They learned things from it, and this is what it looks like now. It's very grim. It's very grim.
Yeah. It's that idea of just loss plus. Again, he went from being the shining knight to being the dead knight. So, like, not only have you the huge amounts of loss, but huge amounts of failure as well.
Right.
He failed. That's haunting.
Yeah. And then you have all the different armors throughout.
Yeah, that's it. So it's like those are all his ancestors, and all those that came before him.
The weapons that they used.
Yeah.
And things like that. I also like in the writing, you tell us a lot about, explain what's happening here as far as like where we were and what's happened since. But this is cool, man. All these now, as far as the layouts go, when you were writing the book, with your artist, how much of this was him kind of doing his own thing, and how much of it was you saying, "Hey, I need you to kind of like, this is what we need to do here"?
With the beginning, it was very much like this was what I envisioned, because I wanted that then and now, and I wanted the pages broken up. Because again, this is almost like, you're seeing him armor up and you're seeing him put pieces together to create that new character. So certainly for like the first, I'd say 3-4 pages, I was really, really specific. And then after that, I was like, however you think you can show this scene and this scene, then I'm happy for that. But yeah, for the first few pages, I was like, this needs to be this way.
Yeah, gotcha. Even I love the coloring too, where you kind of like the coloring tells you as it gets darker and deeper into like his madness almost, right? Like he's just this is a man who's lost everything essentially, and what happens to him. And then we jump into our supporting cast, which is Bill, and I love these guys, Bill and Rebecca. Bill is tell us who Bill is and tell us who Rebecca is, and we'll go there.
So I wanted to have that kind of wicked kind of double team. I've always enjoyed either it being a rugged, no nonsense cop. When you think Bullock in like Batman the animated series, he's slightly out of shape. He's slightly rough around the edges, but he's brilliant. But I wanted that in terms of a reporter. So he still has his morals of being a good reporter. But he's a bit chaotic. He's a bit messy. He's a bit older, so he's a bit jaded. And then you've got, her as the photographer, and she's almost like, she's the youth aspect and has tons more energy. But they kind of complement each other well because she kind of forces him to keep up with her and still, like I can still do this. So I love that, and he's was because he's older, then he will have known the Ward family longer.
Right.
So as a child, he probably would have known, Robert Ward's grandfather to then his father to now seeing him. So he still kind of has those ideals that we need the Wards.
Right. And then you have the detective.
Yeah, we've got Heather, who is again at certain points. She's one of those who she obviously respects the law, but she also understands that there's swines everywhere, people. But she has to remain professional. She tolerates a lot of people, but I really like her as a character because she's no nonsense, but she's also really smart. So rather than sound off as you might want to sometimes, she'll reserve it and wait for the. I think it's really good when someone can say one line of substance rather than shape for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
She's more that character. She'll think it through before she says the one line, and then that line can destroy you. So she's great.
I like that. Yeah, no. I'm going to stop sharing here because I want to move forward in the book, and I don't want to spoil up everything. But that scene where I left off, obviously, there's been a triple homicide, I guess, in the story. And what I like about the story as I was reading it and before I came on was that it looks like it's going to be a whodunit story, but you know who did it, and you know what I mean. Like even though it's not confirmed, you know what I mean. And the characters within the story are trying to figure out who did it. The reader, you let the reader know.
Oh yeah,
you let the reader know who did it. The question is why. Yeah. And that's what intrigued me about the story. It's not the who did it. Not there's these guys they're found on pikes, heads are cut off. Like medieval style, right? And so right off the bat, you know who did it. And the question now becomes, why did he do it? Yeah. Why were these murders, why did they happen? And why did they happen to the person or the family that it's happened to? Yeah. Right? Because there's a lot of that. So explain that a little bit, because it sounds very vague. People are like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Like, I've never read this book. What are you guys talking about? So talk to me a little bit about the hierarchy and even the social, I guess, economics of the world that you created.
Yeah, so there's definitely again, there's definitely the hierarchy aspect, and when you look at the UK in general, and people think about lords and ladies and all that kind of stuff, and it's now become a bit more of a throwaway term because you can actually go online and buy a lordship and buy a ladyship. But I wanted to have some kind of aristocracy in there that were just, awful people, because the event, and again, this takes place a year after, so a lot of people have capitalized on it, while he lost everything. So he's been, almost biding his time, and kind of moving slowly and slowly among us, to get all this information. And this family tie in with the Church of the Luminous and so on and so forth. So it becomes more and more apparent, and again, I want to do this connecting to some of the other titles, that there's so much going on behind the scenes, and he's privy to some of it because he's figured it out, but he's not even privy to all of it. So, but that's why he goes after the family.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then I wanted to show just this scene here, whereas again, this is where you saw the beginning, where he's sitting there, and he's obviously a tormented soul, right? This is a man who, like you said, fell from grace. Everybody loved the wards, and now he's become this, somebody who obviously is going through some stuff, and he's hearing voices, and he doesn't know how to cope within the world as it is now. Yeah, which I thought was brilliantly done, man.
Oh, thank you. Again, it was like a weird bittersweet thing, because as the Dead Knight, he's got so many layers of character, and of course you're adding to that as well now, which is amazing. So there's so many layers that we can play with, but to make that possible, the first thing I had to do was destroy him. So it's you kind of feel cruel that you kind of go, right, I've got this idea for a character. What are you going to do to him first? Oh, I'm going to completely mess his life up. But yeah, so obviously he lost Duchess, Shadow Fox, who was his best friend. He failed his nation, which is the main thing, And if you think of all that legacy of all those ancestors, and it stops with him, imagine the pressure, to fail. It just drives him completely insane.
So Lou says those bought titles come with a whopping 1 square foot of land.
That's very true. They do.
That's awesome. All right, so here we have another character, which I thought, and man, kudos to your writing, dude. Like, it's these are two characters going back and forth. When I was reading this, it was almost like watching, an episode of, your favorite show on TV, where you have this, this higher up and the inspector, going back and forth about, you need to give me something, because I've told people you are the best at what you do and we still don't have any answers. You need to give me something. And this is that back and forth between the two. So she's under a lot of pressure to find out. And so she's got to find out what's going on. And I like the way you're bringing all these characters together. And, as the person who has to now take over the writing duties for you, it's fun, but it's also a great challenge. You know what I mean? Because these they're so well done.
Thanks,
so well done. And the introduction of characters continue. You know what I mean? Just like this guy here, who's this tall, skinny, slender dude. What is he doing in the alley? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the story takes twists and turns, man.
It was really fun to write. It really was, because you've got this tall man character, because I think it jumps from the real sense of tragedy and the stuff with the Dead Knight, and then obviously we're writing a world that's surreal and magical and mystical and all that. So then you've gone from real world depression, and trying to be dark, and and then talking about like the restrictions of the law enforcement, and then you've got a guy who can read timelines and things by touching it, and so it was a lot to try and get in for a first issue, but I did really enjoy writing this, and again, the first issue you barely actually see him in action, which was one of the things that I kind of oddly liked, because again, I think the mythos of a character, like you think of the beginning of Batman, like the 89, the scene set with the two people talking, and then all you see is Keaton as Batman just slowly coming into shot. He hasn't swung a punch and you're already going, Jesus Christ,
who is that,
man? So I love that.
Now, you mentioned that scene, and I was watching just recently. I was watching the Batman, the one
Oh
with
yeah.
the pen. And I think that they try to do something similar in that
Yeah.
movie, like the introduction, like he's walking from out the shadows to
On
beat
the
up
train
this
station.
group of gang
Yeah.
members. And again, listen, this is gonna sound like, old man, get off my lawn kind of thing. But when I compare those two things, and I know that 20 years from now or 30 years from now, the kids who watched The Batman, that will be their Batman, right?
Yeah.
That will be the movie they think, oh my God. Whereas 89 for us is
Batman.
Batman. I mean, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. But yeah, it's interesting that the introduction of characters is so important sometimes too, especially when they're this big, or when they're when you want them to become icons. When you were writing it and when you were trying to figure that out, did you think about, okay, wow, what is this introduction going to look like?
Um, for me, it was about the final reveal of him. I love surprise reveals. You've known me long enough now, and I talk about page reveals being hugely important. Like one of the things that I've always said to people as they're making comics and stuff like that is never put your page reveal on a right hand page. It needs to be on a left hand page.
Got Tony.
Yeah, because I want that turn. I want to turn and go, whoa, not turn and go, whoa, but I've got to come back over here now. So, like for me, when I was writing it, the reveal of him as he was, I mean, obviously, yes, you can see him on the cover, but as the story runs, just the reveal of him at the end was something that was hugely important. And again, it's like I've got two masked characters that I've created, which was Foe and the Dead Knight, and they're so different. So it was really interesting to write Foe, who's got more of a light-hearted, energetic. It's very much. It literally just occurred to me in this moment. Foe and the Dead Knight are very much Batman and Night.
Okay.
In terms of character,
Yeah.
The Dead Knight is much darker, and Foe is more slender. He's more energetic. He's more powerful than Dead Knight in terms of superpowers. So it was really difficult to flip between the two. And then once I kind of really knuckled down with the Dead of Night, it sounds daft, but it was a joy to write something so dark. But
speaking of superpowers, and let me just pull up this from Mitch. He says, subtly and less is more is so important and yet so hard to pull off, which makes great ones even better. And that is very, very true. Very true. But as far as superpowers, does the Dead of Night have any kind of supernatural abilities or any kind of superpowers?
No. So what I did was I just made him so pre-event he's much more athletic. He relies on technology more, not to an Iron Man standard of technology, but he has technology. I wanted to make it reasonable technology, but when the year of insanity for him, he's definitely bulked up. He's a lot more kind of like sluggish, so there's no more fancy kicks and backflips for him. It's just here's an axe. If you don't duck, that's your own fault. That kind of thing. So he's much more aggressive in the way that he is.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I get that. And so we jump. I don't want to show you the reveal at the end of issue number 1. So guys, pick up issue number 1 so you can check that out. But this is issue 2, and this is where you basically get handed off the reins. Say, here, George, take this one and do what you got to do with this one. This is the cover for issue number 2, which cool freaking cover. The newspaper. The newspaper. And this is, tell me a little bit about the concept behind why you decided to go with this cover.
So I really like the idea of, because obviously, through issue 1, you've got Bill, who is constantly still trying to champion him, but then you've got the other news outlets who are going to brandish him a madman and so on and so forth. So it just made perfect sense to make a newspaper. And then so obviously, as we discussed, we kind of slanty angled it a little bit, so it kind of looked a little bit kind of off piste. But it also gave us a great opportunity to throw in nods to other things. So what we did, and obviously you and I discussed this, because this is going to be interesting, because this is a deep dive that I get to hand over to you as the host now. But obviously, we wanted the image that is the picture there, and within the book, you get to see that moment when the picture's been taken.
Right.
You know, we've got the Church of the Luminous stuff at the top there.
Oh yeah.
And again, if you look at the Church of the Luminous, theirs is a gold diamond, and obviously further down you can see a doodle of the actual diamond.
Right.
And then as you scroll down a little bit more, this is where Easter eggs start to come in. That image is from Messiah issue 1.
Okay.
You see, so that's the beauty of it. Now we're tying in to other aspects within the world.
Right.
You know, but yeah, I like the idea that he's been in obscurity for a year, but in the moments that happen in issue 1, the first photograph of him is this new, as it says there, a new night rises.
A new night rises, yeah. What I also want to point to everybody is that now you have a new creative team. So whereas in the first issue you had that, obviously I'm added in here as the writer, but is this Mateo or Matias? And I always ask you this question because
so it's Mateus is the artist, and Mateo he did like layouts and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. So
and then obviously for this one, my name's there just because I passed over some of the story I've got in mind, and you know.
No, of course. And as you can see, it is now Haydes. It is not P.A. Hayden anymore.
No, that's it. The moniker is official.
Now I don't know if it's a heel turn or is it you know, like what happened? How would you describe this? The name change.
Do you know what it was? It was because it's one of those things, you know, when nicknames just stick, and Laurie Cunningham is responsible for a lot of that because she decided it would be very funny to go on social media, get the Hades from the Hercules film as a GIF, change the spelling, and then it said Hades going to Hade underneath, and then just put from this day forth he shall be known as Lord Hades, and it stuck. And the more it stuck, the more I just answered to it. And then loads of people just said, it's such a great pen name. And I was like, yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
so I was
it is.
just like,
it's cool, bro.
Yeah.
I like it.
So I just decided just lean in and that's it. So yeah, even like, you know, I've got family members who may call me that as well. So it's just like, all right, fine. Okay.
It's done. It's done. So now this is where I wanted to show you guys. So remember the first issue. The first issue had just a few, you know, when it came to the timeline, there were just a few issues you had to read and you were all caught up. Things don't change. Things don't change here. So Ace of Imagination, our world timeline. Now we're on a ride now. We are moving. The train is on. So so Points of Villainy, you basically changed it from just 2 books. Now we have the comics. So explain the separation of these and why it happened.
So when we initially did the book, and it is 2 books, but it's actually in one. So you flip it over. Half the book's printed upside down.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's 2 books, but you buy it as one. But at the time that we did the book, it was because we were just starting out in finance. You know, it was like it was cheaper to make a book, and Laurie and I had both, you know, had the author aspect to, you know, us as creators. So we wrote the book first, and we knew there was always going to come a time when we needed to turn it into comics. But this is where it started. So we took, in the book there's 16 stories, and what we did is we took 12 of them, and 6 from each side. So you've got 6 stories in Points of Villainy, which are the first 3 there on the top, which is now a graphic novel, which we now have on sale as the complete Points of Villainy. And then we've got Points of Virtue, and each of them has 2 stories. We're working on issue 3 for Points of Virtue now. And then, so we just, you know, you can still get the book for those that want it, but we now have the graphic novel as well. And then the timeline goes on. Yeah.
And then the timeline goes on here. We got, so Whole, issue 1, still there. Sister Grimm now has 2 issues. You got, you know, we read those 2. Move on to Messiah. Person is now included in here. Now, Person is awesome. Person, was a screenplay for
Correct.
a 10 episode, mini series that you
Yes,
wrote, and I've read it,
that's right.
and it's freaking amazing.
Thank
And
you, man.
I'm wondering when Netflix is going to pick that up to make this story, because it looks incredible. So that's Person. So you adapted that screenplay to an issue of Person.
Yeah. So again, it's what I did was I took the 10 episodes and adapted them to a 4-issue arc again. So we were able to do that. And I just want to say as well, Whole, we, because of the way the Whole was laid out, because the difference with Whole to all the other books is it's all drawn in first person. So the entire issue is drawn in first person. And we realized that the best thing to do was to make it a one shot, because the novelty of it being a first person was fantastic. We worked out all the angles, etc. There was no way you should replicate that for other issues. But it still stands within the world. So the character from Whole does go on into some of our other titles later.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I like that. And then now you have Dead of Night 1 and 2,
Yep.
Upsec. We're 3 issues in. So, and I
Yep.
think Sister Grimm right now we're finishing up issue number 3 as well.
That's
So
correct.
one more issue of these 2, and we'll graphic novels is where we're going.
Correct.
with these.
Yeah.
And again, guys, you can check out the Ace of Imagination collection over at aceofimagination.com. It's in the show notes. It's definitely in the show notes. So check that out. So we jump into Dead of Night, number 2. And so I will say, when I started writing the script, and I'll show you guys a little bit of what I do when I write scripts, especially when it's not something when it's not my property. And I do it even for mine sometimes. I like to, and I tell this to people, when you're writing for a comic book and you're sending your script off to an artist, the artist has to be in on everything that's going on in the book. I know that as writers, we like to leave mystery, right? We like to say, oh no, okay, the reveal can't happen yet. Your artist has to know. They have to be in on the reveals, because he or she is the one drawing it. So I try to put a note in there before the beginning of the book. So I'll show you what I mean here. I have actually a copy of the script up. So I sent this over to Mateo's, and big shout out to Lori Cunningham, who did the editing on the books and on the scripts. Yeah, she's incredible, man. She's amazing. So let's see, is this it? Yeah. So this is my note to the artist, and this is what I said to them. Basically, I want to let the artist do their thing. So when I do have stuff in mind, I let them know, hey, listen, lay it out however you want. Just the one thing that I ask artists to be mindful of, because I am the letterer, is keep in mind how much lettering will have to be done within the pages, so I don't cover up a lot of your art. And if it is going to be covered up, and again, obviously, we can always tweak that. We can always change the dialogue or whatever. But I always like to leave them with a little note just to keep that in mind. And obviously, and this may sound it's not to sound condescending or anything at all, but I like the lines of communication to open up right away. So which is why I do it this way. Again, I want the artist to do their thing. I'm not saying don't do your thing. Make it however you want to make it. But and then I go into my script, which I normally, and this is I think this is normal, just the 1 and 2, just the numbers, just so that they know how many word balloons will be on the page. Again, everything is just a blueprint to let the artist know, hey, this is how much we're going to need on this page. And I'll show you guys this page coming up, but this is page 1. So panel 1, 2, and 3. That's just 3 panels. So, and then I'll show you what this looks like. Let me just stop sharing this, and I'll show you what the artist came up with, which Mateus did an incredible job with the artwork. I personally am a big fan of that style of art, so it was like right up my alley here. So
yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah, no, he was really good. So again, the production, awesome. I love how you guys put this together. So this is the first page. Action sequence, totally. I wasn't telling them where to put the camera. The camera's, up to the discretion of the artist, and that's what I love about it. But a lot of action. I mean, this guy's destroyed up against that wall. And you were talking about his savagery and
Yeah.
you know, his medieval, you know, the swords and all that other stuff. You know, it's not going to be a good thing when what happens to this gentleman next. You know what I mean? Now, do you want me to show the reveal of what happens next, or should we
Yeah,
just
you
kind
carry on. No, that's okay. I'm okay with
yeah?
that.
All right. So hacks
It's
him up.
it's such a great panel.
Hacks him up. Just
Yeah.
completely, just, you know what I mean? And the crazy thing is, it's not shown. We're gonna show it. It's almost like that Alfred Hitchcock moment. You know what I mean? Well, a little more, because you do see the actual, but the character, the faces on the characters, I thought he did an incredible job with that. And here we go. Who's next? You know, what's going to happen next? Again, to your point, the page reveals, right? And stuff like that. In today's world of comics, though, have you noticed that the page reveal sometimes gets lost in the scrolling? Because now we're not page turning, we're scrolling up and down, right? So now I feel like almost like every page has to have a page reveal. Like at the end of every page, you got to have something similar to this. So he goes in, and just when you thought it was, you know, it was over. What I loved about what you're because obviously when we communicate the feedback to each other is, you said, I this is cool. I just need one line in there, and you wanted the one line, right? And so all of this leads to the one line, which is, and I'm gonna fast forward to it because I don't want to spoil too much, you know, what happens here. But the one line is, I did.
Yeah.
Right. Because he asks him, you know, I'm glad to have seen you. I mean, you know, I thought you died. And sure enough, he says, I did.
Yeah.
He did
And
die.
that's your cover right there as well, is that image.
And this is the cover. So talk to me about that line, and talk to me about why that was so important for you to have in this issue. Out of all the things, because you said, George, you could do whatever you want. I just want that line.
I think I remember, and again, it's a weird comparison, but we do another show called Shoot the Ish, and we were talking about Nicolas Cage films, and we were talking about The Rock, and how that Sean Connery's character was great, but he doesn't say much. But what he does is he says it was substance, and I think that 2 words in response to the "I thought you died" was the most powerful sentence that could come out of his mouth, because again, I never wanted him to say much. It's almost like, let the savagery speak for the man that he is. But him just it's that moment where even he admits, that guy's gone, done, you know.
Right.
So
right.
and that's a big thing to say. It's like, I did die, it's done.
Yeah.
So
what I also liked about, you know, when we were talking about this was, you can tell he's still a good person. I mean, at least to Bill. Bill still looks at him. He remembers Ward. It's almost like, you know, when you remember someone, and you always remember the good things they did, and even though they're doing terrible things now, you always remember that in your mind. You're like, no, but this person still has good in him. And I think that's what Bill is going through right now, which is why even after they saw him do what he did, he still believes, no, he's not going to hurt us. We're fine. You know, of course, Rebecca, you know, she's crapping on herself. She's like, wait, no, don't talk to him. But he almost knows, like, I know this guy, like, he's not going to do anything.
And Bill had seen him grow up as well, and that's the thing.
Right.
He'd seen him, and again, he understood the importance of that legacy, and I think that's the beauty. Is Bill is almost like a grounding character. You know, and again, if you see the way that we had it written in there, he even speaks it quite softly, the way that you lettered it. He doesn't shout it. It's like, you know, it's not like there's no aggression in him. It's just a complete admission of, I did. And that's it. It's two syllables. Done.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that's why that was important.
Here's Mitch with a comment here. With this amazing art, this feels like a superhero story as told by Tales from the Crypt comic books.
Oh, nice.
That's a nice comparison. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, cool.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good way to look at that. And then so then I, you know, again, you allowed me to add stuff to the book, and so I created a character for the book, Lena Dorn, and she's a reporter, another reporter, and I figured, if we're gonna have Bill and we're gonna have you know, it starts becoming a conspiracy story turned on its head. We're going to need somebody that that we're going to need for that. And so here she is, and that's Lena Dorn. And if you notice what she wears on her lapel, she's obviously part of, she's from the church.
The Church of the
So
Luminous, yeah.
yeah, the Church of Luminous. So when we first meet her, she's outside waiting at the at the at the gate of the mansion that belongs to the gentleman whose family was killed. But the leader of the Luminous Church is coming, and she's excited to meet him. You know what I mean? So, and that's where this scene kind of starts. It's also a segue from that right into the image that we see in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And to your point about the words, I did. It's just like you said, 2 simple syllables and it's done. But and I got to commend Matthias again for the artwork, because it's
amazing.
I enjoyed the heck out of this, man. This is when I remember when I was getting the pages from him, to see, it's always incredible to see your words like this. So that's always freaking awesome. But yeah, so as we move along, I mean, this is a meeting of the minds between these 2 individuals, and what's going to happen next, and what they're going to do, and how they're going to stop the Dead Knight from continuing his onslaught on their family, basically. And so that's kind of where the story moves on. But like, I wanted to ask you, as the creator of the story, how easy or hard was it to kind of like not give up, you're not giving up control, but to let somebody come in and kind of like create or play within your sandbox, so to speak?
It was easy, and it's a genuine, I'm not blowing smoke. But it was easy because of the friendship that you and I built. I talked to Laurie Cunningham about everything to do with this business. Laurie's been with me since day one. So she's editor in chief on it. She does all the editorial work. I do all the sales work and the marketing work. So there's so many conversations that we have, and it just becomes so busy for me, because the Anyone world had got bigger and so on, that I knew something had to give. I knew I'd got to give something up, because I just didn't have the time. And then when me and Laurie had the conversation, like, who do we know? It's a genuine true story. We both said George at the same time.
Well, thank you, guys.
And it was like a jinx, make a wish. But it was very cool, because again, it was interesting for me, but I'd already kind of taken a plunge of sharing the world with writing the book with Laurie. She wrote 50% of the book. So I was comfortable, and I'm comfortable with people that if I trust someone, then it's like, you have my trust, and I believe, you'll do what's best for the character, and you have. So it wasn't difficult for me. But I suppose for me, again, flipping it back onto the host, like normally, because everything else you've written is of your creation, Wonder Duck, Russ 5377. Like, was it like picking it up from someone else and being like, here's my ball, run with it, kind of thing?
Yeah, no, it's gonna sound dumb, but like, I look at whenever I'm working on somebody else's property, and this was the first one I've ever had published like this. I know that if this was my book, I'd want whoever's writing it to, kind of like ask me, hey, is this all right? Is this okay? Like, is this going what you kind of thought? So I definitely wanted that. I wanted to make sure that you were comfortable with what I was putting down on paper. And the funny thing is, you were just like, yeah, man, cool, whatever. Like, like you were like really just hands off. I was like, holy, I was expecting more of like, well, let's make sure that, you know what I mean? Like, because I thought that would be the case. And it wasn't. It was more of a, all right, if you think that's best, go for it. Like, I was like, okay, well, is this going to affect anything else? No, it's not. Like, it was just so right off the bat, there was a comfort level, and I felt comfortable doing what I wanted to do with what I was writing. And it was, so it became easier to write.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But there's always still that part of me that wants to make sure that I'm not screwing up the rest of the world. Because again, this isn't just a book that exists in its own universe. This is a book that exists in a universe of stories. So
Yeah.
obviously what happens here may or may not affect what happens in another story. So I've never worked that way. This is the first. And it's kind of cool because it reminds me of like growing up as a comic book, fan. You always heard about these writing seminars that these writing retreats that Marvel would go away on, and they would plan out a full year of whether it's Amazing Spider-Man or a full year of whatever saga they were writing or crossover they were writing.
Yeah,
And
man.
that's kind of like what it feels like. And it's kind of it's cool. It's cool to feel that, because I feel like it feels like, holy cow, this is, even though I'm not working, I never wanted to work for any one of the big twos. It feels like I'm working within a group like that. It's like the bullpen.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's that kind of feeling. So it's very cool.
Yeah, and I like that. But it's like when I sent you the script for Person, because I knew that once I hit like Dead of Night is referenced most heavily in Person.
Yeah.
Because those two characters,
right.
No spoilers, but they're connected in a way. But there is heavy reference to him later. Will be in issues 3 and 4. So I gave you that in like just to let you know this will come up. But what was great is it also just sparked off ideas for your issue 3s and 4s, and that's what I like, and that idea to just kind of bounce stuff around. And I think that's because, again, like as writers, and anyone who's watching this will probably know, it's great creating, and it's great when people draw your work or read your work or review your work. But writing is a really lonely aspect. Me myself, I put my earphones in, I've got my music, I have a playlist. It's like everyone leave me alone. So it is quite lonely. But then when you get to brainstorm with like-minded people, and bounce stuff around, it's class.
But
it's issue 2. Like, again, the tone changes because of the new team, but it changes for the better, in my opinion.
Well, I think, and again, it's one of those things where, like, and I worked with you prior to this when we were doing that anthology. Remember that anthology that I worked on? And it was kind of that. It was like people would write 10 pages, and then the next person would come in and write 10 pages, and then you see where the story kind of goes. And this kind of reminded me of that a little bit. But the difference with this is that I gotta be mindful of the stuff that you set up in the first issue not to be forgotten.
Yeah,
because then it becomes a plot hole. So I definitely have kept that in mind, as far as like with the inspector and with her higher up and all the characters that you introduced in the first book and the things that happened in the first book. Still, at some point, they have to pay off, even if it's me writing it and I've come in and I have my own kind of thing that I'm working on. I think those things still have to pay off. I can't forget about that. So that's the other part of it. That, and also remember, when you're writing your own stuff, and if I'm writing a book, I can make it 40 pages, 28 pages, 32 pages, 25. I'm writing it. Here, there's more of it's going to be 22. You know what I mean? We're doing 4 issues, so let's keep it within that. So there are parameters to work within that. As a high, and speaking to people who obviously want to do this professionally and be hired by companies to do this, you got to be mindful of that. Like, you are hired to do a job, and so you still have parameters that you have to stay within, because for cost, you know what I mean, cost reasons, creative reasons, or whatever it is. You also have to keep that in mind. As open as you've been, and as gracious as you've been letting me do what I need to do, I also understand that, hey man, it's got to be 22 and it's got to be 4 issues. Let's not go over here and say, hey, you know what, Hades, I got an idea for a 12-issue run, man. Like, or 11 or 10 or whatever the hell it is. Like, George, we're doing 4 at a time. Let's do 4 at a time, and let's go that way.
That's the arc, and then from there onwards. No, and that's it. Yeah, I completely agree with you, mate.
Yeah, no, but the book looks great, man. It's a lot of fun to write. I think people will have a lot of fun reading it. Not because obviously I'm now on the writing team, but I think that you've created a world where the characters are interesting. They're relatable. I mean, who doesn't who doesn't have demons within that they are fighting every day, right? So it's something that is relatable, I'm enjoying the crap out of writing it.
Oh, thanks, man. No, I appreciate it. And again, I think it's going to be, I know we were already discussed for issue 3 and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I think it is a great title. Yeah, it's been nice talking about it. Actually, it's been a while since we've had a proper chinwag about it. So yeah, nice, good man.
Yeah, no, it is. Do you have so beyond the 4 issues or the first 4 issues, do you already have ideas as to where you see this character going, even within the rest of the stories? Like, are there talks about what's going to happen to this character after the fact?
There's been bits, but mainly one of the things that obviously I wanted to I'm a big fan of, like, if things happen organically or if people lean towards things. Again, you could plan and say, right, I've planned for issues up to issue 35, but if you lose the audience, I think like manageable chunks is good, because then you can gauge the audience. So, for example, I've had a lot of people who have gone, obviously you've got 2 masked men, wouldn't it be great to see Foe and the Dead Knight face off?
Yeah.
Or he's that insane, could you imagine what would happen if he came up against Sister Grimm? Or so it's like, not that I'd put it out for a public vote per se, but paying attention to people, just a visual of Foe and the Dead Knight standing toe to toe would be a really interesting one, because again, as characters, Foe has a kinetic absorption ability, and the Dead Knight is extremely violent.
Yeah, right.
So,
Right. Yeah, Mitch says everyone loves a good crossover.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, it is that aspect. So there are plans, but again, we're not 100% concrete yet. We're going to see where organically where it goes.
Yeah. No, and like, to Mitch's point, a good crossover. Everybody wants a good crossover. Like, not something that you're going to force just because, the ego takes over. Like, I want to do this because I want to do this. Again, it's your world. You can do whatever you want. But I think at this point, I think you guys are going in the right direction as far as ASAP. And we didn't even talk about the Anyone world, which, and I'll mention it really quickly here, Hades, before we go. But if you guys saw, obviously at the beginning, we had the sponsor of the show, which is Eddie Lima's book, End of Zed, which is on Kickstarter right now. He's also part of the Anyone world, which is the other side of the coin, so to speak, that is ASAP Imagination. Do you want to just speak briefly about the Anyone world before we kind of sign off here?
Yeah. So the Anyone world is where we publish and distribute for other creators around the world. Obviously, Russ is on there. As you said, Eddie Lima's on there. We cover things like digital distribution for those that want it. We help people get into shops and stores. We take stuff to conventions. That, any table that we have is a table that you're on. We have an Anyone World Showcase show on our ASAP Imagination YouTube channel, hosted by Laura Calcaterra. And then once a month, we have a deep dive on titles from the Anyone World, which is Laura Calcaterra and you.
Yeah, those are fun, dude. Those are fun. We did one. The one that we did last month was a lot of fun. Or was it earlier this month? This month's a freaking crossing over.
The clocks have gone back. I'm not sure where I am anymore.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's light, but it's early. It's dark, but it's cold. I don't know.
Let me show the site a little bit here for everybody to see. So this is the Anyone World site there, and the titles. Obviously, you have all digital content, all print. Search by. I mean, it's an easy website to navigate. There's my graphic novel. Yay. Lori Calcaterra's Path of the Pale Rider. Current promotions, which I love you do this, man. You do the current promotions. So for those who are who like to buy comics online and stuff like that, there's always promotions here. The Pond Bros. Big shout out to the Pond Bros. That's a Kickstarter that's going on right now as well. So check that out. You got the Ennies, which we did this year, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was
the Ennies was a lot of fun. Yep. And then right, like things that are coming in 2024, which like you are consistent with the schedule. Like these things, if these things are coming out, they're coming out. You know, you have pre-orders here that you can have. Wilma Dunn, this looks really cool.
Yeah, it's a great cover.
Oh yeah,
Well,
that's
that's the other thing. So that's actually one of our artists did that. So on top of
this is
doing all
awesome.
of those things, we also offer services. So we offer editorial,
Mm,
formatting, sequential art,
nice.
cover art, marketing, stuff like that. So it's a one nerdy, kind of stop shop.
Yeah, no, and I love it. I love the fact that here, if you guys wanted to check out the Kickstarter, you can go on the website and it's right there. This is really cool. Again, another art, another page though. I mean, another cover done by one of the artists, right?
Yeah,
With them.
that's it. Yeah.
Look at that belt, man. Any
Uh,
word of like having this belt done like in
we,
real
we
life?
we have talked about it, yeah, and actually having
Yeah,
it made as a physical thing. Yeah, that's it. Oh, there's Eddie Lima's. That was his launch party,
that was the launch
actually.
party.
So
That's
yeah, people
right.
go back and give that a watch. It was fantastic. Got guys super talented.
Yeah, no, this is cool. This is cool. Yeah, featured creators. I mean, this website is just full of just really cool stuff, man. This is crazy right here. It's
That
serial
was
club.
yeah, that was the last digital release, yeah, that we had.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah. The Adventures of Israel St. James, testimonial. I mean, you could be here all day
It's a
checking
big
out the
old site,
website.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, the amount of work that goes into these websites is insane.
Mm.
But yeah, hey, listen, Hades, this has been
Thanks so much.
amazing, dude. A really good deep dive. For those who have been watching, thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you.
checking us out. I'm glad we did this early enough where you can actually speak and you
Yeah,
whisper
yeah. It's
because
not like 1 a.m. and I'm
it
going.
would have
My neighbours are asleep.
it would have been 1 a.m. in the UK if we did this at 8 o'clock, which I will be live again tonight at 8 p.m. with Miss Lori Calcaterra, speaking to her about the Path of the Pale Rider. So tune in for that. But Hades, amazing dude.
Yes, man.
Any last words before we go?
Not that I can think of. I think we've kind of covered everything.
Yeah.
Yes. Obviously, Eddie Lima's on Kickstarter at the moment, as is the Pom Bros. And then if people, would kindly tune in on Wednesday at 11 Eastern on the ASAP YouTube channel, we've got another launch for another comic of someone
Wow.
else through the Anyone World.
Nice.
So yeah, it's great, and again, cliche as it sounds, it's wicked to help these people kind of get it all up and running. So it's
Oh,
cool,
for sure,
you
for
know.
sure.
Yeah,
And again, for those watching, make sure you pick up the first issue of Dead of Night. Pick up issue 2 as well. But the first issue was written by Hades himself. Are you writing any other books within our world? What are the books that you are writing for those who maybe say, "Hey, man, I really like Hades' writing."
so Person I wrote, Whole I wrote, Messiah I'm writing the full 4 issue arc, and then
Okay,
I co-wrote Points of Villainy and Virtue. So yeah, a
nice.
few.
And you are also the writer on the Pond Bros. Let's not
I'm
forget
also the
that.
writer on the Pom Bros. Yes, I
Let's not
also wrote
forget
that.
that.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that is a fun story. I did get a chance to read that script, and that is
yeah.
it's funny because like as writers, it's almost like you have a I guess you don't want to be just pigeonholed to like one
Mm.
genre or one kind of writing. So I'm glad that you kind of dipping your toes into like a more lighthearted kind of story, not
Yeah,
like
it's
the
very
typical.
it's very 80s cartoon meets wrestling meets sci-fi. So it's like quite satirical, and it was a lot of fun to write. It was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And we're doing some different things in that one as well. We're utilizing fourth wall breaks and all kinds of stuff in there. So
yeah.
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be good. So yeah, that I'm actually gonna add that to the show notes as well, so you guys can
Thank you,
check
Connor.
out that Kickstarter, which is live now. When does it end? Hades, how long
The
do they have?
12th of November, I think. I think we've still got 15 days
Oh,
left. So
okay, so it's
it's
time.
still,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of time. Buy 6 copies of each issue just in case, people.
Yes. Well said, Mitch. Well said, my friend.
Well said, Mitch. Well said. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us and being on here. Big shout out to everybody who was on in the chat. And if you guys were just kind of watching and just hanging out, make sure don't forget to hit the like button and share this video. Share it out to everyone you know. Big shout out to Lou, Lori, Eddie, Mitch. Obviously, you guys have been amazing. Thank you so much, Hades. You're the man. We will
Yes,
talk
mate.
tomorrow because we talk a lot. And I can't
Yeah,
wait
we do.
till we dive into issue number 3 fully, and then we get some of that artwork. But in the meantime, pick up issue 1 and 2, and pick up everything else on our world and any one world, aceofimagination.com. Paul, thank you. Cool show today. That's what Lori says. Thanks, Lori. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's all I got for today, guys. We'll talk soon. Peace. I'll end the live.